What's up YouTube? Capital G here, looking at the new DarkLord monster and spells and traps. Now these spells and traps have been released in two different batches, and the reason that I didn't talk about batch one wasn't because these cards are bad or anything like that. I mean, casting out of the DarkLords is essentially just Rota. Like, what deck doesn't want a Rota? Even if this one can only be used once per turn, having a Rota, especially one that can be used during both players' turns, is pretty ridiculous, and it's definitely something that every deck would want. But it's because I wasn't exactly sure how the deck was going to look. Like, it was kind of difficult for me to look at these cards and then envision a DarkLord deck because it's not something that I had ever seen before. So I kind of swayed away from making a video because if I can't envision how a deck is going to look, it's hard for me to kind of like gauge the competitiveness of the deck. It's kind of the reason why I haven't done any videos on Abyss Actors, because I'm like, I see a bunch of cards, but then I don't know exactly how they're supposed to kind of function and work all together. So it's hard for me to talk about, well, this is going to be good because of this reason, you know, yada, 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 so on and so on. I can't obviously look at Arc V and look at like Sawatari playing them and think, oh, well, that's why it's going to be amazing because that's an anime and that just doesn't work. But now that Lithium put out a video, I hate to be writing the coattails. Oh, whoops. There we go. Now that Lithium put out a video, it does give me a little bit of clarity, and now that I look at it, I feel a little so that's how it's gonna be. I feel a little duh because, you know, I did actually run on Dueling Network. I had my own version of old school DarkLords where obviously the new cards weren't on there because they were never on Dueling Network, but I did run a bunch of the old guys. I ran some of the cards that he ran, like Trade-In, you know, Hikatrus, Allure of Darkness, and my build was based around kind of like the Star Sereps where, you know, if you brought back Superbia and you didn't have Christia and you didn't have another big fairy, then obviously you could bring back like you could bring back Scepter or Chair and do some plays that way. But the build that he has actually looks pretty solid. And if you don't know about DarkLords, I'm talking about like the old ones. Basically, you built the deck around being kind of turbo-ish, built around being able to special summon these guys a lot with like Oasis of the Dragon Souls, Call of the Haunted, and really not keeping them in your hand that long. You're going to use things like Trade-In, maybe even Cards from the Sky, Allure of Darkness. Just get them out of your hand, try and get them to the graveyard, special summon them back from the graveyard with things like Soul Charge or the other cards, or worst comes to worst, you could use something like Valhalla. You're really not going to normal summon that much in old school DarkLords. I mean, the only thing that I really normal summoned was like you know, Scepter. That was pretty much the only thing. But with these new cards and the way that the deck could look now, I'm not sure that this deck is going to normal summon at all. I literally think this could be a situation like Cyframes where you just, the entire duel, you're just special summoning, although they have card D, but that's pretty much it. So let's look at the new cards. Okay, the first cards are pretty self-explanatory. Casting out of the DarkLords is essentially just a Rota. It gets you any Fallen One or DarkLord from your deck to your hand. You can only activate it one copy per turn. So it's pretty self-explanatory. Run a bunch of copies of it because it gets you your monsters. It makes it so you always have at least one in your hand. And since they're never like actually stuck in your hand because they do have a monster that is a destiny draw from the hand, and they have a monster that is also kind of protection for your other DarkLords battle, you know, like destruction effects, the monsters are really never trapped. They're never really dead in your hand. They also have their own theme Raigeki break called DarkLords Falling from Grace. By the way, just based on these two cards alone, I kind of like the lore of DarkLords because it seems like they were angels, and then maybe something like with, you know, a Satan type situation, you know, happened where they tried to like betray the god, or they tried to, you know, betray the gods of the heavens, or they became corrupted and they got thrown out of like heaven or something like that. That's what it seems like. So I don't know if these cards will be nah, these don't seem that religious, but this one says essentially send one DarkLord or Fallen One monster from your hand or face up on your side of the field to the graveyard. Destroy one card of the field. It's basically like a Raigeki break, but again, all the DarkLord monsters can copy the monster or these spells and traps from the graveyard. So you can not only Raigeki break your opponent once, but then when this card is in the graveyard, you can Raigeki break them again. And the thing that I like about these is it's not just from face up on the field, it's from your hand as well. So again, these guys are never actually really trapped in your hand. And then let's look at the new cards. They've got a new monster. I don't know if I don't think this guy is really necessary. It's called DarkLord Mastama. It's going to have good stats because all DarkLords are pretty much like 25 and up. 2400 or 2600 attack, 2600 defense, level 7 Dark Fairy. So again, more allure targets. You can only special summon one of this guy per turn. and you can only use the 2 effect once per turn. The 2 effect just being, of course, the obligatory during either player's turn, pay 1,000 life points, target a Dark Lord spell or trap, copy the effect, and then shuffle this card back into your deck. When I say this card, I mean the spell or trap, so you never really run out of those, by the way. Effect number 1, if this card is in your hand, you can discard 2 other Dark Lords or Fallen One monsters, special summon this card. That is a really, really big investment, in my opinion. If this thing gets bottomless, you are fucked. I mean, obviously, I did just say that this deck is going to be based around special summoning monsters, but the thing is, I'd rather use those cards for like trade-in or my Destiny Guy draw, or, you know, like I'd rather use those for other things. I'd rather use them for the Raigeki break effect in my hand rather than put all my eggs into summoning, you know, this one guy and just have him get bottomless or torrential or something like that. Now, here's the card that I really, really, really think ties the entire deck together and why I think this deck will have some potential. It's called Altar of the Dark Lords. It's a normal spell. You can only activate 1 per turn because all of these guys are just 1 per turn. Special summon 1 Dark Lord or Fallen One monster from your graveyard in defense position. I like this because, you know, even though Call of the Haunted and you know, things like Oasis of the Dragon Souls are good, this is a card that you can instantly activate and get a monster on board. And what's cool about it is, you guys probably know about DarkLord Superbia. DarkLord Superbia is like kind of like what you want to summon a lot off of Call of the Haunted and Monster Reborn, because when you summon Superbia from the graveyard, you can get any other fairy alongside of it. Just you can't get 2 copies of Superbia, but you can get your Christias, you can get Dark Lord Rota, so it's a really big damage card. And even though obviously this monster gets summoned in defense mode, you know, you could just get another 8 and you could instantly go into an Exceed and you could do damage that way, or the monster that you summon can be summoned in attack mode as well. So I'm looking at this and I'm like, now I'm looking at this deck and I see 10 Monster Reborns potentially. I mean, we could run 3 Altars, we could run 3 Call of the Haunted, you could run 3 copy of Oasis, you could run a Soul Charge, and then you could run Valhalla. Like, you literally never need to normal summon in this deck. This deck will be nothing but big ass special summon beat stick deck. You know what I mean? And then hopefully you can get Christie out and you can just lock your opponent out. But if you summon this, if you use this card and summon Superbia, then you get Christie at the same time, and then your opponent just can't special summon, and you have 2 world-sized beaters, and hopefully that those can just win you the duel. The last card is Dark Lord's Temptation. This one's pretty good. It's a normal trap. You can only activate 1 per turn. Send 1 Dark Lord or Fallen One monster from your hand or face up on the field to the graveyard. Take control of 1 face up monster your opponent controls into the end phase. This does not target. Cosmo, I am looking at you. This is a great out to Dart Destroyer, and it's one of the deck's main outs to like a Dart Destroyer type card, or, you know, Magispector Corinne or something like that. Keep this in mind. You can use this during both players' turns because of the monster effects. So I could easily see you, like, let's say that your opponent had a Dart Destroyer and nothing else, right? You could get rid of a Superbia in your hand, you could take control of their Dart Destroyer, then you could use Altar, you could summon your Superbia back, then you could summon another Dark Lord, then you could go attack, and if you didn't kill them, okay, well, Superbia and Dart Destroyer are both 8, so you could just succeed with it in main phase 2. They'll never get their Dart Destroyer back, and even if they do, it obviously won't trigger, and you don't have to worry about it attacking over you. So this card seems pretty dope, mainly because it's non-targeting. I think I'd probably run 1 of this, I'd run 3 of this, obviously, because I just think the way that this deck is going to be built is, I don't think normal summons are going to be needed in this deck. Like, I don't even, maybe you could mix in Star Cerests. I think that might get a little cluttery, because I'm not sure if you would have like the space to incorporate them and instant fusion and all the stuff that they add. But this deck looks pretty cool because it just seems like, to me, it seems very throwback-ish. It seems like we're going to have a deck just full of, you know, 26 and 2800 beat sticks that are no nonsense, get straight to the point. We want to summon a big ass bunch of monsters and beat the fuck out of you. Basically Monarchs, but like special summon versions. And I just think, again, it's going to be kind of built similar to like Cosmo and Tellarknights, where we've seen those decks in the past work off like 3 Call of the Haunted and 3 Oasis. If you have enough of those special summons, your normal summon actually isn't that important. And as I've said, this deck can already run 10 copies of Monster Reborn essentially, so I think that that's pretty cool. So let me know what you guys think. Shout outs to Lithium for posting this deck, giving me a little bit of clarity so I can actually talk about this deck. And just look how much draw power you have in this deck. This dude's Transmute's Destiny draw. Trade-In is a Destiny draw, essentially. Allure Darkness is a draw too. You can throw in Pot of Desires. That's another draw too. Like, you, even though you have all of these monsters that you can't really normal summon, or that you won't really want to normal summon, you have so much draw support that you can just get these guys into the graveyard at will by either their own effects, or by their traps effects, or by Twin Twister. You can use that, discard them from that. So I don't know, man. This is the next deck where normal summon is not even important. Thank you guys for watching. As always, let me know what you guys think.